maritime expert Henry Byers and myself sat down and chatted. We were talking about the ports of the U.S. that receive the most volumes every year, the ports of L.A. and Long Beach, but there is one port that is poised to compete in the next 10 to 15 years. And Henry, we're talking about the Port of Savannah. It's in the news a lot recently, especially with the trade war. People are kind of shifting. Shippers are shifting where they're sending their products to. Talk about how the trade war has affected what the Port of Savannah is receiving.
Sure, there's a couple of different factors, but primarily, Savannah is receiving a lot of the volumes from the manufacturers that are moving out of China. Countries like India, Bangladesh, countries like Vietnam that have to have feeder vessels connect in Singapore. It's really changing the composition of these ocean routings. These ocean carriers are finding it more cost effective, more efficient to use the Suez Canal as opposed to the Panama Canal to find those East Coast options from Asia where these manufacturers are moving, outside of China.
And the Georgia Port Authority is doing a very good job of seeing that there is a need. There are more ships coming in. They are increasing their volume year after year. So one of the things they're doing is they're adding a new container port. It won't be done till 2026, 2027, but it will be a big deal. Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're expecting to add around 2.5 million TEU capacity at Hutchinson Island. They've already been approved for that project. So on the other side of the river, they're going to just expand that port in a big way. They're also adding, dual rail service to Chicago, which is a big deal. There's over 5 million TEUs estimated that market is worth alone in terms of having rail access. So Norfolk Southern and CSX, two Class 1 railroads, are going to be providing options for those inland routings as well. It's just going to be a really big deal. And by 2030, somewhere between there and 2035, I think you're going to see them handle, be very competitive with places like the Port of LAX.
Yeah, it's exciting news for the Georgia Port Authority and especially all the work they are putting into that area. You're talking about that dual rail service. Will this take away from drayage companies really working down there if people are just putting their containers onto the rail line and just moving them that way?
Well, it's a great question. I don't think so, and here's why. A lot of that volume is already moving inland to those markets anyway. It's a lot of the shippers, the mid to large size shippers that don't have the ability to just relocate and build a distribution facility like your, Home Depots and Walmarts have been able to do just right there at the port. So I actually think that's volume that the drayage community really wouldn't have seen anyway. And I think just the expansion, the addition of those services just makes Savannah a more attractive option. And as it becomes that more attractive option, handles more volume, drayage opportunities are going to increase by a large amount.
Very exciting times. Did you ever see the Port of Savannah being a competitor, say, in the next decade for the ports of LA and Long Beach? Did you imagine that?
Absolutely. I think when you're looking at the way, it's just, there's a lot of different factors, but it's just the right mix of factors as well. You have, easy access to Interstate 95. So in terms of drayage, you can really access places like South Carolina with ease, Florida, and even Savannah's an attractive options for people that are located in Alabama, and even as far as Mississippi, Savannah could be an option. So that coupled with the fact that there's a lot of open space, there's a lot of room to grow, just in the Southeast in general. Like if you've ever been outside of Savannah, in between there and Atlanta, it's a pretty rural area. So a lot of companies, are finding that an attractive option to put distribution centers, and therefore, that ocean freight that comes into a lot of those distribution centers will be coming through Savannah. It's just becoming a much more attractive option.
We here at FreightWaves will definitely be keeping our eyes on the Port of Savannah. Be looking for more drayage updates in partnership with Next on FreightWaves.com.